Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating explainer on the evolution of chivalry. Now, if you're thinking chivalry is just some dusty, outdated medieval code involving dangerously heavy armor, running around opening car doors, or awkwardly fighting over who pays for dinner, you are in for a total surprise. We're going to break down how this centuries-old historical concept is actually being completely transformed into a highly practical, modern toolkit for dating, friendships, and honestly just relating to humans in general. But right off the bat, let me ask you a question. Is the classic knight in shining armor actually kind of toxic? It's a trope we've all grown up with, right? But today, we're going to challenge those preconceived notions. We really need to ask whether the traditional idea of being this sweeping, stoic protector actually causes way more harm than good in today's landscape of dating apps and modern connections.
Let's get into Section 1, Deconstructing the Shining Armor.
Okay, so to understand the baggage here, we have to look back. Chivalry definitely didn't start out as a dating manual. In the 11th century, it was strictly a violent, pragmatic military system for heavily armed horsemen in France. Then, by the 12th century, it morphed to include courtly love. This basically meant placing women on pedestals as spiritual muses just to calm these super-aggressive knights down. But fast forward to the post-feudal and industrial eras, and chivalry mutated again. It became a social script designed to keep women contained in the home, completely romanticizing the idea of a fragile damsel depending entirely on a strong male protector.
So the foundation here is crystal clear. Originally, chivalry was an exclusive aristocratic boys' club for warriors. It was about equipping wealthy elites with war horses to maintain social dominance. It was about power, not modern romance.
So how does that knightly legacy translate into today's psychology? Well, researchers actually categorize sexism into two different types. Hostile sexism is the obvious one, the direct, derogatory, aggressive policing of gender. But benevolent sexism? That's exactly where traditional chivalry hides out. It feels protective and sweet on the surface, right? But it actively infantilizes women. It flatters them into structural dependence, saps their personal ambition, and honestly tricks society into relying on a male savior instead of actually fixing systemic inequality.
And look, the traditional protector role doesn't just hold women back. It takes a severe psychological toll on men, too. If you're a guy and you've ever felt that suffocating pressure to just man up, this is exactly why. The developmental script that commands boys to suppress vulnerable emotions like fear, grief, and tenderness leads to a systemic disconnection from their own inner emotional life. Studies show this leads to chronic anxiety. And when traditional men encounter emancipated women who simply don't need saving, they experience a profound inner crisis. They literally feel replaceable. They internalize that chivalrous self-sacrifice into a kind of pathological self-reliance, and ultimately choose emotional isolation over genuine connection.
Moving on to Section 2, Courage, Regulating Your Emotions.
If traditional stoicism is a trap, what does modern courage actually look like? Well, it's completely inward. Enter the concept of somatic courage. Based on how our nervous system maps out safety and threat, somatic courage is the ability to cultivate a physical baseline of calm, what scientists call a ventral vagal state. It means staying socially engaged and grounded, even when your heart is pounding out of your chest during a tense argument with a partner. Real courage today isn't taking a literal punch or puffing out your chest. It's regulating your own nervous system so you don't completely shut down or explode during a conflict.
Think of it like two totally different operating systems. Traditional stoicism runs on the fight-or-flight response. You suppress everything until you either blow up in anger or completely withdraw. Somatic courage, on the other hand, runs on present-moment awareness and emotional regulation. It completely replaces that old patriarchal power-over dynamic with a collaborative power-with model. This, right here, is the secret to handling rejection gracefully. It's holding space for a really tough conversation without collapsing into defensiveness.
That brings us to Section 3, Loyalty, Transparency without Hierarchy.
To redefine loyalty for the modern age, we are looking at something called relationship anarchy. Pioneered in queer and non-monogamous communities, this approach applies anarchist principles directly to intimacy. Instead of blindly following a predetermined societal script, like assuming your romantic partner is automatically your +1 to literally everything, connections are custom-built. They're based on the unique needs and boundaries of everyone involved. Loyalty isn't something that's owed. It's built on mutual sweat equity, the actual daily investment of time, vulnerability, and care.
Contrast this with the traditional relationship escalator. You know the one. It's that linear path society pushes. You date, you become exclusive, you get married,
and that romantic spouse sits at the very top of your life's hierarchy. Relationship anarchy completely flattens that pyramid. It champions radical autonomy, meaning you maintain total sovereignty over your time and your body. Under this model, a deep platonic friendship or a queer platonic bond is valued just as highly as a romantic one. Modern loyalty isn't about blind obedience or control at all. It's a commitment to continuous transparency and totally respecting each other's independence.
So how do we actually practice this in real life? We do it through authentic relating skills. The absolute core of this is sovereignty. Owning your own emotional experience and setting boundaries without demanding the other person change to make you comfortable. The second part is getting someone's world. This means deep empathic listening and resisting the urge to offer unsolicited advice. And I literally cannot stress this enough. These skills are exactly what allow you to gracefully accept a no from someone. You can hear their boundary, validate their reality, and maintain your own secure sovereignty without taking their no as a personal threat.
But this kind of relational safety is only possible when we look inward. We need to recognize that our minds have different protective parts. Sometimes a defensive part of you might really want to lash out when you feel hurt. But when we learn to soothe those inner parts, using frameworks like internal family systems, we can resolve conflicts with curiosity instead of posturing. This is exactly how we prevent loyalty from turning into a toxic, codependent crutch. We ensure we truly support each other, instead of just demanding someone else fix our distress.
Now for Section 4, Service, Consent, and Mutual Respect.
We see this divide online constantly, don't we? You have performative digital white knighting. It's totally driven by a savior complex and, let's be honest, the desperate need for likes. It's an intrusive intervention that actually ignores a person's agency and treats them like a helpless victim. Contrast that with consent-based modern civility. This is driven by true empathy and mutual respect. It uses active listening and asks for assistance. Swooping in to save someone without their consent just replicates those tired paternalistic dynamics we talked about earlier. Real service flattens the hierarchy.
There is a gold standard for modern etiquette, and it goes exactly like this. Chivalry coexists with empowerment when acts of service are negotiated, reciprocal, and practiced without expectations of transactional return. Whether you are showing up for a partner, a friend, or a sibling, modern chivalry isn't some transactional game where you put kindness in and expect intimacy out. It's about practical, consent-driven care that completely honors the other person's independence.
Finally, Section 5, the modern ethic of interdependence.
We've traced these virtues across 1,000 years of history, so where does that actually leave us today? By combining internal emotional regulation with inclusive, non-hierarchical frameworks, we are salvaging the absolute best parts of the chivalric tradition. Modern chivalry is no longer a rigid, outdated script of male dominance and female fragility. Instead, it's become a universal, everyday ethic of emotional vulnerability, absolute autonomy, and mutual care. It's quite simply the modern blueprint for basic human decency. I want to leave you with this provocative final thought. In a world completely full of digital noise and really heavy dating expectations, how will you practice the courage to listen, the loyalty of transparency, and the service of true consent? I challenge you to take these non-hierarchical, empowering relationship skills and apply them in your life today. Accept that no with grace, act without expectation, and cultivate true mutual respect. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.